Thanks. Please forgive me my voice. I'm losing my voice, whether I'm coming down with something or I've just been talking too much out on the hustings, but I am losing my voice. Who am I? Why should you vote for me? What sets me apart from the other two candidates who have a real shot at winning this election? I'm a nobody, really. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a wealthy nightclub owner. I left school at 15. I got a trade. I became an electrician. After about 10 years of working in the construction industry in North Queensland, I got bored with that. I had an involvement with Lifeline as a counsellor, and it introduced me to the underbelly of our society. I wanted to get involved in working in my community. I became a police officer under former Commissioner Ray Whitwright at a very interesting time. I was sworn in August '76, and Commissioner Whitwright was gone by the end of the year. And we all know about that history. In the police, I discovered homeless children. I worked with children as young as 11 who lived on the streets with the sanction of the government. And I refused to take that as a reality. That introduced me to university, and I went to the James Cook University in Townsville, where I began to study violence against women. I specialised in my police service with homeless children and the prevention of violence against women. I studied those areas at the University of Queensland when I came down to the Police Academy as a lecturer in that fateful year 1987, when the Fitzgerald inquiry kicked off. And a very dear friend of mine, Detective Sergeant Jim Slade, actually launched the Fitzgerald inquiry. He was the man that took the bride from the Bellinos and gave it to Chris Masters in the ABC, and we all know that history. Fitzgerald inquiry occurred. I played a small part in that, and that propelled me into the public domain, and eventually resulted in me winning the safest Liberal seat in Queensland for the first time ever for the Labor Party. It took me 3 goes, they still hold it. Unfortunately, after the Fitzgerald inquiry, everybody who was involved in that inquiry, including Tony Fitzgerald, paid a high price. Tony Fitzgerald was passed over for elevation, and Detective Sergeant Jim Slade was run out of the police force. But that's life. I love my state and I love my country. And I moved up to Toowoomba 13 years ago. In fact, I knew Mike Horan in Parliament. Mike got me my first job in Toowoomba at the Toowoomba Council. Thank you very much, Mike. And I returned back to my trade. I hadn't been in my trade for 24 years, but the Toowoomba Council was very keen for electricians, so I went back into the electrical industry. I helped a mate of mine start a very big cleaning business here, and I cleaned toilets sometimes in the middle of the night when the cleaners didn't turn up. So I've been a fairly humble worker at different times. I have 3 daughters and 2 grandchildren. Over the past 2.5 years, I worked tirelessly to try and restore democracy to Queensland, to try and establish a new party in Australia. And the Caddis Australia Party was started by 8 people. I'm number 9. I was one of the people that twisted Bob's arm, got him to start the party. How often do we meet people of extraordinary vision? Extraordinary vision. How often do we meet real leadership? Not very often. Where is it? Bob Katter, in my opinion, is one of those people. He's misunderstood by some people, but he's certainly not misunderstood by me. Bob Katter wants to turn back rivers. He wants to do schemes along the lines of the Snowy River scheme, the Ord River scheme. He wants to do schemes that will put more water into our farming industries than the Murray-Darling currently does. Caddis Australia Party is founded on big picture, vision and leadership. We want to do big ticket items. We want to take control back of the RBA. We want the Reserve Bank back in the hands of parliamentarians. We will do that. We want to establish a national infrastructure development fund that will fund the buying back of our assets that have been sold, holus bolus, 100% to other countries, communist China. We believe that our future in this country, uppermost, is in farming and agriculture. Sure, we like mining, we will do mining, but we will ensure that our future in farming and agriculture is not harmed. We know that in northwest Queensland we have one of the richest mineral deposits in the world. We have very large mining companies that are now ripping our assets out of the ground, trucking them on their own railway lines to ports which they may own. We will restore 20% return to regions like they have in Western Australia. In this election, I'd really like you to contrast the three candidates whom, as I said, have a real chance of winning this election. Contrast our backgrounds, please. As an ALP MP, I started a Chamber of Commerce in my office. That Chamber of Commerce still continues. I know that small business is the engine room of our nation. I'm a small business owner myself. I started an education council. I'm passionate about education, absolutely passionate. I started a young people's council. I'd like to do all of these things again. I think I'm the only former ALP MP that's spoken at the Liberal Club in Queensland. I will be an entrepreneurial MP like Paul Pasali. My motto will be, whatever it takes. The Toowoomba bypass, disgraceful. McFarlane in Howard's cabinet for 11 years, never delivered.